He's taking a closer look at some of the wonderfully weird, gloriously geeky, and freaky things in our world.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Geeky, Cheeky, and Downright Freaky. It is, well, if you're here with me live, it's Wednesday. If you're catching me on the podcast or the recording, then it's whatever day of the week that you're listening. But I do, of course, if you're listening on the podcast, folks, I always recommend that you check out the live show, which is every Wednesday night at 7 p.m. Central, 8 Eastern, because I do tend to show a lot of videos and images and stuff that kind of go along with the topics. And so, you don't have to, of course, nobody's forcing you to do a thing. But if you come into the YouTube, which you just go to our Geek Insider or search YouTube for Geek Insider and subscribe, set yourself the alerts. It'll tell you when we're on live, because it's not only my show on Wednesdays that is live. We have Lady Geek, which there's some changes coming there, but you also never know when we're going to have a special guest. We have our weekly Geek Speak show, which is available as well. And Meredith and I were just discussing what days of the week the shows are going to air, but we are actually going to start having a show Monday through Friday. And it's not just Meredith and myself. There we have Clever Title Pending. We've got Rob from the Indie Devil. I forget the name of his new show, but I'll be promoting that as well. And so we've got Monday through Friday shows right now, and then who knows, we may even go into the weekend. But anyway, tonight's show, I don't know if you saw the little card, but tonight's show is one of my favorite topics, which is the Mandela effect. And, yes, I've discussed the Mandela effect several times, but I'm new to the podcast world. As you can see, I am in the new studio area that I told you I would be in. But I've written about the Mandela effect several times on geekinsider.com. And there's just an abundance of material that really intrigues me. And this week, this is one of those things I just off the top of my head, I said, all right, I want to do this type of show. And I tell Meredith, and she does a little artwork for me and she prepares everything. And then I start doing my investigations. And while I did next week's show is another deep investigation. It's one I actually spent over a year investigating on. This week's, I just had so many things just off the top of my head, and I didn't realize that they were all interconnected. And what I'm talking about is that freaking Mickey Mouse. Now, if you don't know what I'm talking about, a few weeks ago, I did a show on the Mandela effect. Actually, alternate universes, or are we living in a Matrix? That's what the title of the show was. And I discussed Snow White and how in the Walt Disney movie that the evil queen never says mirror, mirror on the wall. She says magic mirror on the wall. And if you go and look in the official Disney book, it says mirror, mirror. But the show, or the movie rather, says magic mirror. And I showed a clip from it. And granted, I made no claims of ownership on Snow White. I didn't say, look at this little clip I put together. I clearly said it was a Disney movie. And lo and behold, my little show here, which has a handful of listeners at best at this point, I got a cease and desist from Mickey Mouse for showing this clip of Snow White. And how I was claiming that it was changed, or that a lot of people, I won't say that I claim that it was changed, but that a lot of people remember that this woman right now said mirror, mirror on the wall. But no, she says magic mirror on the wall. And Mickey, which, I kind of hesitate to show his real image, so I thought I'd do some artist renderings here. But of course, we got this. So, this is the man, Mickey Mouse, and we'll talk about Mickey some more here in a minute. But I got a cease and desist saying that I couldn't show that clip of Snow White. So okay, and that just got me to thinking. I'm like, Mickey, besides Walt's frozen head, what else are you hiding? And so I got to looking around, and man, it's looking like Mickey might be hiding quite a few things, because just off the top of my head, folks, I won't say all of these, but a good portion of them came up, and that were related to Disney. But I did find a couple that were interrelated while I was going through. I got to quit reading while I'm talking. But anyway, so one of the first ones that I am not a personal experiencer of, because or it's not a Mandela effect that gets me, is because I did have an image for this, but you can see it everywhere, and of course you've probably seen it yourself. And that's Cinderella's castle at Disney World in Orlando. If you look around, there are a lot of folks that claim that they entered Walt Disney or Disney World through Cinderella's castle. That's after you went through the turnstiles, paid your ticket and everything, you walked through Cinderella's castle to get into the park. Again, this isn't one that I experienced. I didn't go to Disney World until late in life, but when I went researching this one, I actually only found a couple of examples, but there were, over the years, I've seen multiple people say that they had anchor memories of one of the best times in their life, the best memories of their lives, that they entered Disneyland or Disney World, through Cinderella's castle. And of course, if you look anywhere now, Cinderella's castle or Disney's castle is in the center of the park. There's no way it could be mistaken for being at the beginning of the park. Now, of course, folks, this is one thing I always lead off with about the Mandela effect is I'm not saying that things are definitively for sure changing. I do say that I have memories of these alternate memories. I do share a lot of them. I'm not saying that there's time travel involved. I'm not saying there's a multiverse. I'm not saying that there is that we're in a matrix or a video game. But I think it's possible. And the reason for that is because you have a large group of people that share these different memories. As I started going through my little mental checklist of what ones could be possibly connected to the infamous, oops, sorry, that was the wrong one, Mickey, that Mickey Mouse. Let me get a drink here. That one of the first ones that came to my mind was Donald Duck. And Donald, this one kind of threw me for a loop, everyone, because I've always thought that this was a big time Mandela effect. But when you think of Donald Duck and he has something around his neck, what do you think of? Do you think of, just what do you think of? I don't want to, skew your memory, but I remember this, which it seems that a lot of people do. But then I saw this, which he's got the sailor tie. Now, the reason that I say I'm confused is because if you go and look up images of Donald Duck, it's that right there. Now, this could be what some of the affected refer to as a mid-flip or a mid-flop, mid-change, whatever you want to say, because right now that was the main image that I seen of Donald Duck is with the bow tie. The claimed Mandela effect is that it was a bow tie and then now it is the loose sailor's tie. That's what I remembered was the bow tie, and then now it was the sailor's tie. But something's kind of hokey going on here. again, it's one of those things where I'm not so close to Donald Duck that I can say definitively it was a bow tie. And then it was the sailor tie. I can't say definitively, but I can say that I've been studying this subject long enough to know that there's something funky about Donald Duck's tie. But it looks like because this, if you look here, you can see the pile of gold below him, so you can guess who's next to him there. You can see another ducktail. Hint, hint, ducktail. But anyway, so it looks like that Disney could have switched back and forth between this sailor tie and the bow tie. I'm just not quite sure on this one, and so it may require a little bit more investigation on my part at the very minimum. Before we move on to some others, and folks, I know, there's nothing going to be groundbreaking on this show. If you are a Mandela effect person and you've looked into this, a lot of these are going to be very familiar to you. If you're only vaguely familiar with the Mandela effect, then some of these might be shocking. Because I tell you, the first time that I ran across them and the first time that my wife ran across them, it was somewhat disturbing. Not all of them. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying, oh my God, every single one of them is a change. But some of them were just like, holy crap, that I remember it the other way. But anyway, we'll discuss this more here in just a minute. Stick with me, folks. I want to give a very special shout out to our friends over at Full Moon Features, because if you watched the show a couple of weeks ago, then you know that Blade is coming out with his own movie. And here's the trailer.
He's going to kill us all. There are more murders every week.
You have 5 dead bodies.
Miss Ivanhoe.
This girl, who's shown up out of the blue at every one of our crime scenes.
My real talent is seeing future in my dreams.
We all have our secrets.
You're not like the others, are you?
We are working here to perfect this. I have expanded upon his procedure.
Time for some pitching practice.
This goes high up, and I don't trust anybody.
You are a madman. I made sacrifices.
You are not indestructible!
I'm definitely looking forward to that one. I've been a Puppet Master fan since way back. But anyway, so more stuff, Mandela effects tied to Mickey Mouse. Now, the next one, guys, is another one that you may or may not share, but it's I want you to think of Mickey Mouse himself. I told you we would come back to him. And when you think of Mickey Mouse, of course, he's got the big ears and he's got the tail. Oh, wait a minute. That might be a Mandela effect, too. I forgot. Anyway, look. Which one is right? Is it the one on the left or the one on the right? And of course, the differences that I'm talking about, folks, for those that aren't tuned in live or checking out the YouTube channel, is whether or not Mickey has suspenders. And so on the photo on the left, he has suspenders. The photo on the right, he's just got the two big buttons and the big red shorts. And a big majority of folks have it wrong. And the wrong answer is the suspenders. He doesn't have suspenders. He just has some shorts with some big ass buttons on them. But Mickey, yes, I did show a comparison there. And just in case Mickey decides to slap me again, I don't own any of these images. I have no affiliation with Walt Disney. But the things go on with Disney. When you think of the Jungle Book, Baloo, he does this famous little scene where he does the dance where he's singing. I forget exactly which song he's singing, but remember, he has the hula hoop skirt on. Well, and I'm not having a whole lot of live viewers tonight, and it looks like I'm having the ones that I do have connection with are not connected through Facebook. So, but when you think of Baloo doing his little dance, Hawaiian dance, what do you think of? Well, a lot of folks remember, and I'm trying to get over to the right spot, remember that he had a coconut bra, but he doesn't. There's absolutely no coconut bra here. Now, if you look up images, you can see some, it looks like parade Baloos. I don't know if they're portraying him in Disney or exactly where they're portraying him at, but he has full on the coconut bra on. And there's another one with Baloo as well regarding the Bare Necessities song. If you listen to it, there's a part on there, and of course I can't play it or Mickey will slap me, but it's talking about he's never been founder. I forget exactly the whole Mandela effect on this one. I'm going off script here, but it's just one I remembered that Baloo, the Bare Necessity song, there is a word that is just really kind of just off put at this point. And of course, folks, if you are interested in the Mandela effect, geekinsider.com, yours truly has quite a few articles on there, but Reddit is a really good place. There's a Mandela effect subreddit that has a lot of good folks on there that experienced the Mandela effect. You do have to take a lot of it with a grain of salt because there's a lot of folks on there that will post, that their dog's hair color changes every day. I'm exaggerating, but sometimes it feels like it can get that ridiculous. But occasionally there's the little nuggets in there. Another big one that I can't show here, or that I'm not going to attempt to show here because Mickey kind of scares me, is the Tinkerbell intro to Wonderful World of Disney, and a lot of folks remember it as well on their VHS tapes as kids in the 80s and 90s. And that is the Tinkerbell flying out, and she comes up and she does a little dink on the top of the castle, and it makes it unwrap from this black and white kind of stripe stuff, with a blue background behind the Tinkerbell. But anyway, that one never existed. I have had quite a few Tinkerbell intros to Disney video, Disney Home Video, Disney Channel, just all kinds. Wonderful World of Disney. I've seen all different kinds, and none of them come quite close. And trust me, folks, I am by far not the only one that remembers this intro. And I vividly remember it growing up in the 80s. And that was something we did every Sunday night, was watch the Wonderful World of Disney. And Tinkerbell, she came out, she dinked the top of the castle. And it just never happened. It never happened at all. You can see her doing all different kinds of things, but there's no dink on the top of the castle. Now, we've talked some old school Disney. Well, now of course, Disney's been buying up all kinds of stuff over the past few years. And one of those acquisitions is Star Wars, which of course, being a geek, even though I'm old, lots of gray hairs, I am a geek and an old school Star Wars fan. Star Wars holds a dear place in my heart. And this was another one of those early Mandela effects that I ran into that I didn't realize it was a Mandela effect until I became acquainted with the whole term. Because years and years ago, don't remember where I got it from, if one of my kids got it for me or what, but I had or I still have it. It's just packed away somewhere. It's a little Darth Vader, and you push the button and he says like one of 5 different phrases from the movie, from the original Star Wars. And I was surprised when it said, "No, I am your father." I'm not going to try to impersonate James Earl Jones, but let's hear what James Earl Jones says that he remembers.
When I first saw the dialogue that said, "Luke, I am your father," I said to myself, he's lying. I wonder how they're going to...
He remembers what I remember. "Luke, I am your father." Which, again, if you're familiar with the Mandela effect, you know that it is now and quote unquote always has been, "No, I am your father." Now, the Star Wars Mandela effects really kind of piss me off sometimes because Lucas has screwed with the edition so much. You are hard pressed to find a theatrical or a first release version of Star Wars and Empire and Jedi without paying through the nose for it, because he did the re-release and then the special edition and the anniversary and the Blu-ray, and good God, there's so many versions of it. And I think they even redid the effing Han and Greedo shoot even again here recently on another release of it. But the fact of the matter is that even as you just heard James Earl Jones say,
when I first saw the dialogue that said, "Luke, I am your father."
Now, if he just saw it, as he says there, and it wasn't included in the movie, why do so many people remember that version? Sure, it could have been, because it doesn't make sense. I've seen this argument made that it doesn't make much sense out of context if you just say, "I am your father." Well, if you say it in the deep voice, it does make sense. I've also seen the argument made about Tommy Boy. I'm pretty sure it's Tommy Boy, where Chris Farley says into the fan, "Luke, I am your father." And so, sure, there could be pop culture that is influencing our memories. But as I said at the very beginning of this, Star Wars holds a very, very special place in my heart. I'm not a big sci-fi fan. Neither was my father. But Star Wars was something and me and him didn't get along. If any of my family is around, they'll chime in and say, "Oh, nope, they didn't." And there's my brother. In fact, he's in the chat room. Hey, brother, Jason. But no, we didn't get along. But Star Wars was something we connected on. Him, myself, my mother, and sister all went to see Star Wars. My sister and mother didn't like it so much, so Dad and I went to see it, to see Empire, and then to see Jedi as well. And so those were just some of the fondest memories I ever had. And to be told that the whole "Luke, I am your father" doesn't exist was just kind of a brain fart. A brain fuck. Excuse me. I'm not supposed to be saying that, am I? But it's my show. I can say whatever the hell I want. But anyway, so there is another, or there's actually several Star Wars Mandela effects, but another big one for me is CPO's silver leg. In the original Star Wars, again, Disney didn't own it at the time, but they do now. So Mickey, again, I gotta ask, besides Walt Disney's frozen head, what are you hiding out there about the Mandela effect? Because CP3O didn't have a silver leg, at least in my reality. But I had the toys. Okay, I had the Kenner, I believe it was, action figures. And granted, if I'm not mistaken, it has been shown here recently that toy did have 2 golden legs instead of 1 silver. So that could have been a big influence on my perceptions of C3PO. But folks, when I say I'm a big fan of Star Wars, I mean I've seen the original trilogy, not just 1, 2, or 3, but the original trilogy, probably all 3 of them 30 times each at least. I watch them at least once a year, and then I even watch the prequels and the sequels, but I do watch them at least once a year, usually 2 or 3 times a year, much to my new wife's chagrin. And that's something I should have said earlier, guys. I did get married 2 days ago on Monday. I've been with Brenda for 3 years. We've called each other husband and wife. Anyway, we got officially hitched on Monday. But so there's also one of the most infamous or famous Mandela effects, which once again is linked directly to that freaking mouse. And in 1996, Buena Vista Pictures Distribution released a movie known as Kazam, which starred Shaq as a genie. I'm sure a lot of you remember that. It was kind of weird to see Shaq in a movie for one thing, but then seeing him in all this gold and playing a genie was even weirder. But do you remember the sequel, which came out just a couple of years later, which starred none other than Sinbad in Shazam? Now, this one is it looks legit. Man, we got the whole tape on the side there that says Shazam, all of that good looking stuff there that looks like it's the little kid from what's it called? Home Improvement. That looks like he thank you, Meredith. Anyway, that looks like Jonathan Taylor Thomas, I think is his name. But that looks like who that is in there. But I can't say for sure that that's who was in the movie. But my daughter remembers this movie. My youngest daughter, she worked in a video store at one point in time. She remembers the Shazam Shazam with Sinbad. But that never, ever happened, folks. That movie never existed. You will find some parodies online. You will find even what looks like legitimate clips from the supposed movie, but it's from a parody that was made for an April Fool's joke a few years ago. There's even some different commercials, another April Fool's joke. I think there's all one and the same. But Shazam with Sinbad never happened. And of course, Buena Vista Distribution or Entertainment Distribution is owned by none other than Disney. And well, a couple of other little things. We're running out of time here. Man, this show went by really quick. In case you didn't know, the Lion King, 2 of my favorite characters were Timon. Look, now everybody's going to say, oh, you can't even say the other guy's name right. How can you be sure what this guy's name is? Because Pumbaa, which I remembered as P-U-M-B-A, which a lot of other people remember that as well. It is now P-U-M-B-A-A. And so that, spelling Mandela effects, I don't give a whole lot of credence to, except for one, and that is this one. because it really and truly, I think this should be the name of the effect. I think it should be the Berenstein Mandela effect, because this one to me was one of the first ones that I ever experienced. And that is that, which one looks correct to you? To me, it's the one on the left, the Berenstain or Stein. God. See what happens to you when you've spent years down the rabbit hole. Anyway, I remember the Berenstain Bears. My daughters read them, and I always remember being confused on how to pronounce it. But it is now and always has been the Berenstain, Stain, never Stein, Stein. And their son has come out, and talked about that their name was even changed when they came over from overseas. So there's a lot of very strange things about the Berenstain. Now that one is not connected to to Disney. Excuse me, I meant to segue into that one, right? But my whole thing is that our childhoods, if you grew up in the 70s, 80s, even the 90s, and as my daughters have proven, the early 2000s, is that there's a lot of things that seem to have changed. Now, of course, this could be the product of, overactive childhood imaginations, confabulation because our pop culture influences, our friends influencing us. But, how do you explain a boy growing up in the 1970s in Central Texas and a girl growing up in Northern California in the 1980s having the same exact memory of childhood, of things that are strong in their childhoods, especially when it comes to things pertaining to Disney, which my daughters were Disney connoisseurs to an effect. We had all the VHSs. My brother can attest to that. That was one of the things they got every Christmas. There was stocking stuffers and even presents wrapped that were Disney related, Disney movies or Disney merchandise. But the whole reason that I went down this particular channel of the rabbit hole was because Mickey Mouse messed with me. There were folks. I don't want it to seem like I'm vindictive or anything, but there are a ton, and I mean a ton, of channels on YouTube that discuss the Mandela effect on almost a consistent basis. And they show these exact videos that like the one I showed a few weeks ago about Snow White. And so and this wasn't a cease and desist from YouTube or a copyright infringement notice from YouTube or a warning or anything. This was straight from Walt Disney, not the man with the frozen little bobblehead that we saw earlier. That guy. It was from the company, Walt Disney. And it was basically a cease and desist, telling me to stop using the little clip from Snow White. And and I understand that they don't want, every Tom, Dick, and Harry out there putting the show on their show or their movie on their show. But why is it my little podcast here, YouTube show on the Geeky, Cheeky, and Downright Freaky got singled out by that big-eared bastard? It just wasn't fair, I didn't think. And so I really want to know, are there other Mandela effects that are tied to Disney? Are there other things? I mean, really and truly, folks, and I say this in all seriousness, I would not be surprised. Now, it would freak me out a little bit, but it wouldn't surprise me to find out that Old Yeller all of a sudden actually lived and the parents just shipped him off to go live on another farm somewhere because he was mean. It wouldn't, just with the things that I've seen in the last few years, it wouldn't surprise me in the least. Again, I don't claim to have any insight onto what causes the Mandela effect. My brother laughed at me for the longest time until I got him with one, and then now he agrees, and it freaks him out a little bit. I got him. I've told you folks before where the objects in mirror may be closer than they appear because they've never may be closer. They've always been closer. And you can check out the Geek Insider website or geekinsider.com website for more information on that and other Mandela effects. But make sure that you tune in every Wednesday night live from 7 p.m. till whenever I stop. The show might be 15 minutes. Usually it's 30 minutes at least. But join us next week, folks. Next week's show will probably be a little bit longer than 30 minutes. It'll probably go into an hour. And I highly, highly recommend that you come into the YouTube channel or at least the Geek Insider Facebook, because we are going to discuss one of the biggest Mandela effects ever. And this is not only one of my biggest ones, but one that a lot of people that span a lot of age groups share, and that is the Ed McMahon and Publishers Clearinghouse Mandela effect. Now, you know, if you're fully familiar with this one, I still recommend that you tune in, because I actually did a 1.5-year investigation on this particular Mandela effect, and I published an article on Geek Insider about a year ago, maybe a little bit longer, on the subject, and it goes into depth of what I found. I don't recommend you go and read it now, because I want you to tune in next week, because we're going to discuss a lot of that material that I found. But other than that, I hope that you're staying safe out there, everyone. I know that the world in 2020 has seemed like it has gone crazy. I thought 2019 sucked. 2020 has kind of surpassed it by leaps and bounds. But we're all here together. We're all in it together. And, I don't care if there's one person listening or 10,000 people listening. I'm here because there's things that I like to talk about. I'm never short of words. I love, Geek Insider has been a big part of my life for 3 years. I just took over as managing editor just about 4 or 5 months ago. Meredith is my right-hand man. I won't say that. No, Meredith is my right-hand woman. And we are going to do a live show tomorrow night, folks. It kind of goes along that kind of little topic there, which it's the phrase "man up." If I don't know what you all think about that little turn of phrase, but I know that it can piss a lot of people off. It can upset people. But the term "man up," and that's something, it's not really in an official Geek Insider podcast, but we are going to run it on our channel. We've got some special guests planned for that one as well. If you tuned in to our virtual con a couple of months ago, some of them may be familiar to you, but otherwise they will, there's still likely to be some very enlightening and surprising, hopefully surprising takes on this, because whichever side of the coin you side with, there's some heavy opinions on the term. But anyway, I have talked myself 10 minutes past the end of the time, and I thought, I was all worried that I wouldn't even have enough to fill 30 minutes. But anyway, everyone have a great rest of your week. Tune in next week. As like I said, we'll discuss some more Mandela effect, and then we'll get off the subject for a little while. We got some other geeky, cheeky, and downright freaky stuff to get into besides the Mandela effect. But it is one of my favorite subjects, and so you've just got to kind of deal with it. We'll see you next week, folks.
Thank you for tuning in to Geeky, Cheeky, and Downright Freaky, a Geek Insider production powered by NSC Live TV. Become part of our show with sponsorship and advertising opportunities. For details, contact advertising at geekinsider.com or visit podcast.geekinsider.com. The Geek Insider podcast is available on your favorite app, so please hit the follow button and share it out to your friends. Because if you don't, you might have to turn in your geek card.